Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Iliff School of Theology and to this celebration of faculty promotion for Dr. Theodore Vial, who is Professor of Theology and Modern Western Religious Thought. Occasions such as this are wonderful in every way possible. We celebrate the accomplishment of our beloved colleague. We also celebrate the spirit of faculty, staff, student relationships that create the environment in which our teaching and scholarship thrives. And we celebrate this special place and what it stands for, and the critical role it plays in the world in preparing individuals to bring about deep change and address individual and cultural pain. This evening, we are mindful of how our disciplines generate courageous thought leaders and activists. So may this celebration in all of its facets also be the renewal of a blessing of permission to step beyond this place, to live with a passion for our work in the full view of others. Ted, thank you for how you do that through your gifts of scholarship and teaching. Love and compassion for your students and your work. We stand with you this evening in the full joy of your accomplishment and mindful of the promise of all that is yet to come from your work as you present it as a gift to the world. So, Ted, we are grateful for your presence with us and what this evening means to us. We are grateful that your family is joining us, and feel the blessing and the surrounding of everyone in this room in celebration with you. Greetings and welcome to all.
Greetings to everyone. The Iliff School of Theology faculty have appreciated the depth and insightfulness of Dr. Vial's scholarship, as well as his wonderful engagement as a conversation partner and colleague. Indeed, this was the experience of myself and many others from the moment he joined our faculty 11 years ago. The value of his scholarship to his primary and cognate fields of teaching and research has been well attested by experts within his specialized areas. Iliff and DU students have appreciated the quality and rigor of his teaching, as well as his ability to engage students in lively and productive classroom discussions. It's true, it's in all of his course evals. Since joining the Iliff faculty in 2005, Dr. Vial has served the school well in a variety of leadership roles as well, including chairing the Faculty Personnel Committee multiple times, for which, Ted, we apologize. Serving as acting dean of the faculty in the spring of 2015 so that I could take a break. I apologize for that. And serving as the director of our University of Denver and Iliff School of Theology joint doctoral program in the study of religion. Ted, for all of these forms of service and others too numerous to cite here, we thank you. At Iliff, we have three fundamental ranks for our tenure-track full-time research and teaching faculty. Assistant professor as the entry-level rank and position, followed by promotion to associate professor after 6 years of successful teaching, service to the school and to the wider community, and after an extensive peer review of the faculty members' major and minor publications. Then, after at least another 5 to 6 years at the rank of associate professor, the faculty member becomes eligible to apply for promotion to professor, which is not always a given that everyone will attain this highest rank in his or her career, as there are plenty of faculty members across North America who, for a variety of reasons, do not apply for or who do not advance to this highest of professorial ranks. Dr. Vial has without any doubt earned the recognition accorded by the rank of professor, a very significant milestone in the life and career of a tenure-track research-based faculty member in the North American context of higher education, or, as in the Iliff context, of theological education. I'd like to close with this reflection. In 1895, Bishop Henry White Warren published a lecture entitled The Progress of Doctrine. And here's one of the things he had to say about this school and its purpose and its future. The Vial School of Theology has been established to promote progress in doctrine and experience. It is based on the best, that it may rise to some future better than any present best. In doctrine, it fears no criticism, courts always an advance. I think as full professors go, and I've met many of them in the years that I've been here, your colleagues, Ted, current, retired, adjunct, etc., would say that you embody these ideals and these values that Bishop Henry White Warren penned in 1895. Look forward to this ceremony and to your installation address, and Tom and I will be back shortly for the rite of installation. Thank you all.
You are so beautiful to me. You are so beautiful to me. Can't you see? You're everything I hope for, and what's more, you're everything I need. Yes, you are so beautiful to me. Such joy and happiness you bring. Such joy and happiness you bring, like a dream. You're like a guiding light, shining in the night, because you are so beautiful to me. Yes, you are so beautiful to me. You are
Greetings. Our readings today will come from the novel Florentine, written by Dorothea Schlegel, like Hegel.
Not Hegel.
I know.
Schlegel.
Her cousin. It was published almost exactly 215 years ago in October of 1801. I will be reading one of the excerpts from the story of one of the main characters, Julianne, who writes to her favorite aunt giving her wedding advice. Is there another bliss than to love faithfully unto death? Once you told me the most beautiful happiness on earth for a woman was when her husband was at the same time her friend. You spoke to me from the soul, my beloved aunt, and if that is so, you can rejoice with me. He is certainly the friend of his Julianne. He loves me, and can one love without being the friend of the beloved?
Reading from the same novel, Florentine, I'm reading from a song sung by a title character as he sits under a tree in the countryside with a young woman who has enchanted him. I am near you. How shall I grasp the bliss that beckons to me from your dear eyes, as though I should never again leave you? When in full of longing heart sinks into heart, then shall my arm embrace your lovely body, while my mouth drinks the tears of love. Oh, happiness of love, blissful delight, gift of the gods to bless humans.
Amen.
Good afternoon. My name is Pam Eisenbaum, and I'm professor of biblical studies and Christian origins here at Iliff. And I've been given the honor of introducing our honoree and speaker, my friend and colleague, Theodore M. Vial, Jr., professor of theology and modern Western religious thought. That's the first and last time I call you Theodore. Professor Vial attended Brown University, where he majored in religious studies and received departmental honors. He received his MA and PhD from the University of Chicago. His dissertation earned the Merit of Distinction, an honor not easily achieved at an institution that is arguably at the pinnacle of the field of religious studies and notoriously competitive. Before coming to Iliff, Professor Vial taught at Virginia Wesleyan University, where he was a highly valued member of the Virginia Wesleyan faculty. During his time, he received the Samuel Nelson Gray Distinguished Teaching Award, awarded to just a single faculty member in the whole university annually, and was the Batten Distinguished Professor from 2004 to 2007. In 2005, the Iliff School of Theology invited him to join us, where he has served with distinction and has become a beloved teacher and cherished colleague. Now, all that, impressive as it is just really a skeleton, a bare bones genealogy of Professor Vial's education and professional life. But it doesn't really tell you why he has earned the rank of full professor. So let me try to put a little bit of meat on those bones. When you are up for promotion for full professor, they send your dossier around to the most preeminent scholars around the country, usually around 5 or 6 of them. And I asked Ted if he would give me some of the comments that the dean had given him that were anonymized. Several of these reviewers commented that Ted was among the most highly regarded scholars of modern religious thought, of scholars of Schleiermacher, and of other related sorts of things. Now, he's published 3 books. The first, Liturgy Wars, Ritual Theory and Protestant Reformation in 19th Century Zurich, was a finalist for the American Academy of Religion's Best First Book Award. The second, Schleiermacher, A Guide for the Perplexed, is a masterful introduction to Schleiermacher's life and thought. One reviewer called it the best book on Schleiermacher in English. Another summed up the contribution of this book like this: "The amount of ground Vial is able to cover in this book is truly remarkable. He manages to present the most important aspect of Schleiermacher's intellectual work while digging into those pieces that are most important for theology and religious studies. He engages serious issues in the history of interpretation while also addressing current theoretical debates in the field, and he gives a lively account of Schleiermacher's cultural context and involvement with political affairs of the day. And he does this all in an accessible voice and concise format." The freshness of the book, then, consists in Vial's success in showing how relevant the issues encountered in Schleiermacher interpretation are for contemporary religious studies. Professor Vial's most recent book is Modern Religion, Modern Race. Here, Professor Vial explores a nexus of themes that are extremely important for the present historical moment. In a nutshell, Professor Vial's argument is that the modern categories of race and religion took their current shape in the Enlightenment period in 18th and 19th centuries in Germany. His primary focus is on thinkers like Kant, Herder, Schleiermacher, the usual suspects for Ted, but it's the latter two in the context of German Romanticism who form our modern understanding of religion as a distinct category. Perhaps the most important aspect of Ted's genealogy of race and religion as conjoined categories is his claim that religion is therefore a racialized category, and as such, it's not innocent or neutral. And although we cannot seem to shed ourselves of the concept of race as operative in human experience today, scholars of religion can at least be cognizant of the baggage it carries as they go about doing their work. Professor Vial has written many articles, essays, encyclopedia entries that together I estimate would add up to several more books. Many of these deal with more thinkers and issues in the 18th, 19th century, but so many of them go beyond that. They go into areas of cognitive science, ritual theory, theories of religion, and the history of religious studies as an academic field. In some of his scholarship, he has done the kind of archival research usually reserved for social historians and almost never done by intellectual historians. History, theology, philosophy, social theory, these are just a few of the disciplines that Professor Vial's work has intersected with in some way. It may sound very retro, but I mean it as the highest compliment when I say that Professor Vial is a humanist in the tradition of the great Renaissance humanists. Erasmus of Rotterdam has nothing over Ted Vial. He's not only a humanist, he's a first-rate human being. But since we do not promote people to full professor because they are nice or fun to be around, I can't take the time to tell you about those other fine qualities that make him such a loyal friend and cherished colleague. And those who know him already know these things anyway. But for those of you who have not had the good fortune to know Professor Vial in the flesh, I urge you to take a course with him. Please join me in welcoming Professor Ted Vial, who will speak to us on Salon Jewesses and the Religion of Love.
I look forward to meeting that guy someday. This is a little overwhelming. Thanks everybody for being here. Everybody, it's amazing. And in particular, I just want to point out that my mom is here. Thank you. And all of my 4 sisters came, which was amazing. My friend James is in from California. One of my college housemates, Mike, is here. Ben Sanders flew in and surprised me. My trusted and dear colleagues from DU, thanks for joining us. This is just great, and if I choke, you have only yourselves to blame. Michael, are you ready? All right. Okay, as my colleagues will tell you, I really only know one thing. And some of them might tell you I know less than that. But here it is. This is the one thing I know, so listen up, right? Many of our most important ideas that seem so basic that they just feel natural, are products of the 19th century. I'm interested in how things we consider normal, so normal that we may not even think about them much, are really historical and changing. So I think history works a little bit like playing blackjack at a casino, right? So casinos don't want to take the time to stop and shuffle a new deck every time they deal a hand, because the more hands they deal, the more money they make, right? But as they keep dealing hands from the same deck, the odds for the player start to go up, if they're counting cards and paying attention to what's left in the deck, right? And the odds for the casino start going down. So every once in a while, casinos will take the time to stop, get a new deck, shuffle it, and start dealing from that deck, okay? History changes all the time. Every day is a new hand. But there are certain major turning points in history where we get a whole new shuffled deck. The last time this happened in Europe, the US and Britain, I think, was the turn of the 19th century. So roughly 1776, to pick a random important date, right? And about 1815. Things have changed a lot since then, of course, but basically we're still playing with the same deck we got then. Let's just call it the deck of modernity. So I focus on this 19th century reshuffle so we can understand what kinds of hands were being dealt. Or to change the metaphor, so we can see the lenses that we're normally looking through. All right, this is the scariest moment from where I press this button. See, Michael? Do you want to, are you just going to sit there? Sure. All right. All right, so in my career I've written about why we think about religion and race and nationalism the way we do and how these took shape in the 19th century. My next project is on religion and gender. This is the first time I'm trotting it out, so, tell me what you think. Today I want to talk about just a little piece of my gender research. I want to talk about love. What is true love? Who gets to love whom? Why is that important? Why do we think about love the way we do? And I'll start where I always do, in the early 19th century. And I'm going to start with a love story. Not yet. Okay, so in September 1797, Dorothea Veit, that's her, mentions Friedrich Schlegel in a letter to her friend Rahel Levin. Okay, go ahead, Michael. So this is her letter to Rahel. By the way, Vaughn helped me with some of the transitions, so. The one thing, this is Dorothea writing to her friend Rahel. The one thing I found lovable about this person, meaning Friedrich, was his humility. You can change the slide. He has amazingly exchanged this for arrogance. He is not good looking enough to justify this impertinence by a long shot. Change the slide. Next one, Michael. To make eyes at you. Laughable. Laughable. Okay, so a couple of things jump out about this letter. Dorothy is smitten with Friedrich. She's furious that he's expressed interest in another. And while her letter to Rahel is making fun of Friedrich, it's also clear she's not entirely pleased with Rahel's reaction to Friedrich's interest. The letter is signed simply with her initial, whereas other letters to Rahel often have affectionate endings such as your friend or the one who is yours. So here's an example of a letter. This is actually a letter written by Rahel Levin. I spent some time in Berlin in the archives looking at some of these letters, and the number one thing I learned was to be grateful for the people who had transcribed and published them. These people have horrible handwriting. All right, Dorothea clearly got over her irritation with Friedrich because in a letter later that month, Friedrich writes to his friend Novalis, next slide, "Do not be amazed at the wildly poetic tone of this letter. I await in the coming night a beautiful notturno." Okay. Now, a notturno is an instrumental piece of music intended to be performed at night. I'm quoting a famous musicologist there. But here it refers to making a different kind of beautiful music. Okay. Now, Dorothea and Friedrich were introduced to each other by the famous theologian Schleiermacher, who I've spent a lot of my life thus far writing about. Thank you. He introduced them at the home of Henrietta Hertz. Dorothea sometimes refers in her letters to Henrietta as the, quote, pretty-eyed, white-armed one. Henrietta hosted a weekly discussion group. Anybody she found interesting was invited in the late afternoon to discuss books, music, politics, almost anything. And Henrietta found all kinds of people to be interesting: actresses, philosophers, poets, businessmen, singers, nobility. The king's brother was a regular. Rahel also hosted similar gatherings. Dorothea often attended, and sometimes she hosted too. Now, what's interesting to me is there's about 9 of these salons in Berlin at this time, between about 1787 and 1806. 1806, Napoleon wipes them out, literally, with his army. And every single one of them is hosted by a Jewish woman, like Henrietta, Rahel, and Dorothea. These salons played a huge role in the intellectual life of the city, and many of the ideas about religion, nationalism, race, and gender that I mentioned earlier were hammered out in discussions in these salons. Rahel convinced her guests and then the world that Goethe, who had been seen as quirky, was Germany's greatest writer, something like the German Shakespeare. Okay, there's his dates, and this is clearly an image from about 1832 because that's his death mask. Okay. Romantic literature was formed in these discussions, so the influence is far-ranging. You can see this in novels like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The discussions went from art to politics. These salons are one of the first venues where private citizens in Germany weighed in on public policy and matters of government and expected to have an influence, a practice that we're swimming in the run-up to November 8th. Hegel dropped in. Beethoven met Rahel by chance on a walk in the countryside and was so taken with her that he came over and noodled on the piano for her guests. So there's been a lot of attention paid to the books and the music and the poems written by the men who attended these discussions. Far less attention has been paid to the women who led the discussions. Although in Berlin they are remembered. There's a street named after each one of them. Next one. Next one. Okay, there's Henrietta Herzplatz. All right, so back to Dorothea and Friedrich. Next slide. Friedrich is soon writing to his sister-in-law. She, Dorothea, is a brave woman of sterling worth. She has no sense in all the world for anything other than love, music, wit, and philosophy. In her arms I have found my youth again, and I can no longer think of my life at all without her. Dorothea writes to a male friend, "How infinitely rich I now find myself, and each day brings me new joys, and none go missing." In a letter that both Friedrich and Dorothea together write to Schleiermacher, Friedrich first excuses himself for not getting the work done he had promised Schleiermacher. They're working on a bunch of common projects. And then he says, he really can't get much done here. I'm spending a lot of time hanging out in Dorothea's room. Next slide. Or at least I can't get much done clever. Dorothea chimes in sarcastically, "Should I arrange things so that the hair writes something cleverer in my room?" But, like all good love stories, there's a roadblock in the path of these two lovers. Dorothea is already married to a man named Simon Veit. They have 2 children. Dorothea's marriage had been arranged for her by her father, the famous philosopher Moses Mendelssohn. There's Moses. And one more slide. That's his glasses. There's no reason to show you this slide. I just think they're so cool, and thanks, Sarah Pessin found this for me.